that this was a singing bunch. I was impressed with the rendition of Home on the Range. I teach theater at Wichita State University, and we do musical theater, so I think we ought to hit up a rendition from something from Guys and Dolls. Everybody know Guys and Dolls? Yeah. No, we won't. Well, when I have the opportunity to give these kind of talks, I always start off and let you know that, first of all, I am from Oklahoma, so if I like to draw out my vowels a little bit, you'll forgive me. We like our vowel sounds down in Oklahoma. But I wanted you to know up front that I am a grandson of the Depression. Now, I'll explain that as we go along here. And we're losing a lot of folks that lived through the Depression or were affected by the Depression, but I had a set of grandparents that lived in Oklahoma that their young married life, living in a converted chicken coop, were dealing not only with the Depression, but also the Dust Bowl. Double whammy there. And they were farmers on top of that. And so we grew up in my family hearing about the Dust Bowl and the Depression and those tough times, and they were so poor that they couldn't even buy bullets for the gun to shoot rabbits to have meat. Now that's poor. And this changed their mentality for the rest of their days on this earth. And that affected their children, one of them being my father, and that has affected me. And let me explain a little bit about this. If you went through the Depression and had nothing, and then when you got through that and you had a little bit of something, you saved everything and you used it until it was used up. My grandmother kept every bread wrapper, every butter tub, every Cool Whip bottle that she ever had. Yeah? And newspapers. She used those bread sacks to put ears of corn in, or roasting ears as we call them in Oklahoma. Put them in a freezer. She had 400 butter tubs in her stand-up deep freeze with corn off the cob in the butter tub. And then used the Cool Whip tubs when the family got together to serve desserts in and that kind of thing. The nicer utensils in the house. They saved everything. My granddad, who was a farmer, didn't want to go buy WD-40, so he made his own. Out of little diesel fuel and some oil. Made his own WD-40. They used everything until it was gone, and then when it was gone, they had a moment of silence for its passage. It's the only generation that I know of that would wash their Ziploc bags to reuse, or put them in the dishwasher to wash the Ziploc bags and reuse. Whereas when I get the sandwich out of the Ziploc bag, I just throw it in the trash, because I can go buy some more. But not that generation. They use everything. This has affected me to this day. Even though now I live in Goddard, I teach at Wichita State, this is something that I carry with me every day. When you go through that kind of trauma, and double trauma, with Depression and Dust Bowl, it has a tendency to affect an entire generation of people, and it continues to affect subsequent generations whether they know it or not. So I always start off with that right there. Now, I tried when I got up here to speak correctly, to enunciate everything. I really tried. I really did. Especially when you teach college, you want to sound like you're halfway intelligent, I guess. For some reason, the way that we talk back home, people start deducting IQ points. I don't know why, but they do. Now, we have some particular speaking habits in Oklahoma, and I noticed that some of them aren't up here, some of them are. The one that I'm enamored with, that my father uses all the time, is the word yonder. Anybody use yonder? Okay. Now, here is the definition of yonder. It is a place away from you that you will never get to in your life. Because once you get to the place that you've designated as yonder, yonder's somewhere else. You will never get to yonder your entire life. And there's down yonder, there's up yonder, there's over yonder, there's through yonder. There's all kinds of uses of yonder. And some of you are trying to figure out all the uses right now. Right? We're into exaggeration just a little bit. Where I'm from, if something is big, if we want to really emphasize it, dramatize it, it's bigger than Dallas. That is bigger than Dallas. Everything's bigger than Dallas. That is the way that we describe something to you as being big. And if you know what that expression means, you know exactly how big I'm talking about. Bigger than Dallas. Whoa. Whoa. Bigger. Whoa. Or if it's something smaller, about yay big. Yay big. Yay big. Now we have a lot of expressions. Now, I can't go through them all. If something is difficult, I've never quite figured this one out. If something is really difficult, it's like herding a bunch of cats. Yeah. You use that?
Yeah.
I've never herded a bunch of cats. Cats don't even travel in a herd. They don't travel in a herd. We're also into things, if something is dumb, we have to make comment about it. And we have a lot of expressions for that. One of the ones that you might hear occasionally is, that's dumber than a screen door on a submarine. Think about that. Y'all can use that, by the way. It's all right. Or, and my kids do this still to this day, and my oldest is here so I can say this, but if they're upset, they're throwing a hissy fit. Any of you throw hissy fits? Any hissy fit throwers in here? I've used that expression, heard my whole life. I don't even know what that is. I don't know what a hissy fit is. But I use the expression all the time. And the one phrase that I really miss, because people up here speak proper English, is we have a little expression that we use when we are about to do something. You know where I'm going? I'm fixing to. Yeah. I am fixing to do something. That's about as bad English as you can possibly get. Right there. I'm fixing to go to the store. You wanna go? Or if you're fixing to fix something, that'll really blow people's minds. I'm fixing to fix this pickup. You want to help? What? I'm fixing to. Now you notice that I don't really hit a lot of my INGs. The Okie drawl, we're pretty lazy when we speak. We just like to open our mouths and let everybody fly out. We don't like the G. It's too much work to enunciate that G. So we drop a lot of that. We're also one of the few areas and places, and I don't hear it up here much, although I think it's migrating to the north. We have taken the word Walmart and made it a verb. I'm fixing to go Walmartin'. You wanna go? See how that works? Now, I gotta do a little test here. What we just ate, how many of you call it lunch? How many of you call it dinner? There we go. And supper's at nighttime. Boy, that messes people up. Doesn't it? I'll be over for dinner. You show up at noon. What are you doing here? I'm here for dinner. Dinner's at dinner time. Supper, right? Absolutely. We realize where we come from, that all of us have what we call our idiosyncrasies. There are idiosyncrasies. It's what we have, it's what we live with, it's what makes us who we are. Now, I will say this. We do at least know how to pronounce the word wash. You Kansans can't say that word without throwing in an R. I don't know why you do that, but it's wash. I don't even hear that much down in Oklahoma, but I came up to Kansas and I hear it all the time. Where did you find the R to put in that word? Or Washington, that's even better. Wash in Washington. I love it. Of course, we use the term Coke to mean anything that's a beverage, soda pop. We don't use words like soda. I'm going to get a soda. That just doesn't work. I'm going to get a Coke. Now, it may be a Dr. Pepper, it may be a Sprite, but that's what we do. We also know measurements really well. How many of you know the difference between a dab and a smidge? One. How much is a dab?
Bigger than
About like in the palm, right? Yeah? It's too much? See, but down south the dab's bigger, I guess. How much is a smidge? Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm talking about. All right? So some of you know what we're talking about here. Garden food. Love to put in the spring garden. Have since we were kids, grew up. We canned everything. My mother, when I went to college, she'd even can stew for me. Pint jars, so I'd have something to eat in the wintertime. Now that's a good mom right there. We would plant onions, potatoes, tomatoes, green beans, English peas, black-eyed peas, corn radishes, peppers, carrots, and lettuce. I got another quiz for you. How many of you are the connoisseurs of wilted lettuce? Oh, there's a few, right? And you're still living. For the uninitiated, I just had some last week. For the uninitiated, this is a wonderful meal, and this also goes back to being in the Depression. You get lettuce out of the garden. Now, everybody probably has their own way of making it. We make it with cornbread, sprinkle cornbread on the lettuce from the garden, put onion tips on it, fry up some bacon and put bacon in it. And you're so poor you can't have any salad dressing, so you use the bacon grease that's hot and seasoning. You pour that on the wilted lettuce, and there's your wilted lettuce. That is good stuff. And for those of you who haven't had it, you think the rest of us are insane. It's good. Good stuff. That's either crazy or poor or I don't know. Combination. Poke salad. Any poke salad eaters here? I'll eat a lot of things, but I'm not going to eat any poke salad. Poke salad, for those of you who don't know, is a nice little weed that you go and pick, and you got to boil it or you'll kill somebody. Now, I'm not joking. If you eat it raw, you're going to die. Now this is fun. This is good food. You boil it and you take the water, and you don't want the dogs to die, so you go bury it somewhere. And then you boil it again before you can have poke salad. I won't do poke salad. I'll do wilted lettuce, but I'm not going to do poke salad. Back where I'm from, we don't have a lot of what my father calls vegetable-tarians. And if you're a vegetable-tarian, I love you. I do. But see, I grew up, what put me through college was the farm and cattle. So I'm going to put you on a guilt trip about not supporting the beef industry and putting me through college. But if you want to be a vegetarian, that's all right. I'll pray for you later this evening. A few other things I want to mention. Biscuits and gravy. Man, why in the world a gum company hasn't figured out how to put that as a flavor? Biscuits and gravy flavored gum. I would buy a piece of it. I have biscuits and gravy flavor all day long. Oh, biscuits and gravy. Cornbread and beans, chow chow. Chicken fried anything, steak. And wrap your mind around this, chicken fried chicken. Think about that in a minute. Or chicken fried bacon. Yeah, it's good. It's good. You just need to check your pulse every once in a while. And we smoke anything, ribs and brisket and goat and armadillo and whatever we Remember, we were in the Depression in the Dust Bowl. We're thankful to have an armadillo. We'll also make anything into a jelly and a jam or a preserve. Anything. That's what we grew up with. Well, I want to talk a little bit about religion, because we were taught to be spiritual people, taught to be church people, opening doors for folks, stopping out, jumping people's cars if they need it. You know, it carried from my other side of the family, from my grandmother, this expression, and I'm sure you've heard it. Some of you have heard it. If you don't have anything nice to say about anybody, don't say nothing at all. That's hard. That's hard, especially if somebody's really perturbed you. You know, and we try to do the right thing, and we know the Bible, we know, but you know, sometimes you just say something that you shouldn't, but we figured out a way of making it all right with the Lord. 3 little words. Bless your heart. Bless your heart. We can say anything we want as long as we bless their heart at the end of it. That absolves us from so much guilt. Well, you know how she is. You know how she is. She stole from him. She took his car. She punched a hole in the wall. She hadn't been to church since she was 10. Her family's terrible. They're dirt poor. They don't have anything. She doesn't know any better. She dropped out of school. She's just really, in general, a terrible person. Bless her heart. You beat me to the punch. But you got to put that little pause at the end. You have to put that little pause at the end. So some of you know how to do it. You can practice it later on. Some of you, we bless everybody's heart. We do. And again, that washes our hands clean, because we bless their heart. Appreciated the invocation, but you know, something that I missed, and something I still can't quite figure out, that at a lot of meal times, I always hear somebody asking the Lord to bless the hands that prepared this food. Nothing else. But bless the hands that prepared it. Not even the people, not even the women, not even the person who made the food. No, just the hands. Just bless the hands that prepared it. Especially if it's that woman that we just trashed 2 minutes ago. Bless her heart and her hands. Oh man. We're definitely into prayer. We hear that all the time, especially with all these tornadoes and tragedies that are going on. We need your prayers and that type of thing. I think that's great. But there's so many prayers that have to be offered for so many people. For those of you who are church folks, we usually have this board somewhere that we have a list of everybody, called the prayer board, right? We put lots of people on the prayer board, don't we? Whether they need it or not. And we always use that as a threat too, don't we? I'm going to put you on the prayer board. Because everybody will see your name. Well, now why does Teresa need prayers? Well, let me tell you about Teresa. She stole from that guy. She put a hole in the wall, right? So it's not a nice thing to say, I'm going to put you on the prayer board. Woo, that's a threat. Oh, me. But again, this is part of what makes us who we are and what we are and where we come from. And I think it's important to think about these things from time to time and to contemplate the humorous, but also underneath all that, there's a seriousness to it. And again, that's why I always go back to letting you know that my folks went through the Depression and the Dust Bowl. Because it carries through from generation to generation. The things that we are and the things that we do. And of course, the thing that any organization like this asks themselves and need to ask themselves is, who are we? What makes us who we are? What are we going to hand off to the next generation? What's the legacy that they're going to learn from us? What silly phrases are they going to learn from us? And other things. What kind of food are they going to eat? Right? But it is. It's important. That's why we talk about these things. That's why we look at them. All of it is vitally important. Our driving. Did want to talk about driving a little bit. We don't believe in public transportation where I'm from. We just don't. I grew up in town where you could go to town and you could park right in front of the doors of the store you wanted to go to. And if you couldn't, that made for a bad day. Or you circled the block. So you could park and go right into the Benjamin Franklin or the Anthony's or whatever it is that you want to go into. Driving is a part of our culture. It's also part of what gives us our idiosyncrasies. Where I'm from, the things that we will do with our vehicles and to our vehicles is a part of who we are and where we come from. I grew up from a farming and ranch and oil community. And I was always a little concerned about some of these farmers' trucks after a big rain and after a few days, because I didn't know what was fermenting in the back of that truck. But whether they meant to or not, they were making some really powerful wine in the back of their truck. Little alfalfa hay in the back, a little oil, and that water in there, and it ferments and builds up. Woo! That's a nice truck to ride in. Absolutely. That's what I grew up around as far as driving vehicles. That's the vehicle that you took your date on. Now you got, all the major crud out of there so your date could sit down. All the floor mats, you got anything that was green or dirty out of there. Have a nice place to put their feet. But again, this was part of our character. Part of who we are and what we are. What we drive was a part of what we did. Believe me, these guys weren't trying to make a fashion statement. Not with some of these vehicles. Some of them weren't even roadworthy. Some of them even shouldn't be on the highway. Some of them barely had a floorboard. You could look down and see the road going underneath you, driving down the road. And all the hay hauling trucks, they didn't have floorboards. No way. Or brakes. Or lights. What?
Get done by dark.
That's exactly right. You gotta get done by dark. Listen, my small town that I grew up in Oklahoma, we were small enough that our emergency vehicle was a guy's flatbed with a hay spear on the back end. That was our emergency vehicle. A flatbed 1 ton with a bale spear on the back. And he washed it down before he came and got anybody. He had a couple of straps for hay. You didn't go anywhere. I don't see it up here, and I kind of miss it. We did it all the time. Still do. Could go to any place, anywhere in town. I could get out, leave my truck running, go in, come out, and it would still be there. Yeah? How many of you would do that here? But remember, it was one of those farm trucks that we were leaving running out there, so there was no fear of anybody getting in this thing and taking off it. Now, I don't know where I got the idea. My dad didn't talk me out of it, but I'd saved some of my money, and when I graduated high school, I bought me a little sports car, a little Z28. And boy, I liked that car, but if I had that car now, it'd be one of those that I would fall in and roll out of. Those things about that far off the ground, I can't get in and out of those little cars anymore. I love that car, I thought it was great. And to tie in a little bit with NASCAR, I didn't know I was NASCAR. But going on a date in that car and driving on the freeway, and I took an exit really fast. My date made mention of that. Hey, wait, whoa, you're scaring me. I'm going a little fast. I said, hey, baby, I'm qualified. I'm qualified. Well, now, many years later, and a tribe of children later, I drive down the road in a minivan, singing Fisher Price songs. But you know, whoever built this minivan made it for somebody like me. And it's this new thing, and I don't know what they call it, and I don't even know if it even works. But I love it. You put it in drive, and over here to the side, it's slotted with a plus and a minus. Anybody got a car like that? You can sure feel like you're racing. You can put it over there, chin it up there, and that positive. Love it. I don't notice anything with the vehicle. I think it puts it in lower gear. Is that right? Is it supposed to do that? Because I don't notice anything, but in that minivan, I feel awesome. Yeah. Singing my Fisher Price song, jamming that gear over here. I think they did it for people like me who had to drive a minivan for the rest of my life. Oh, me. But again, the way that we drive, what we drive, how we drive, those kinds of things are also part of us, who we are. And yeah, we have a NASCAR theme as I understand it. And NASCAR, it's rabid in the South. People are calm up here with it, but further south that you go, people are rabid about that stuff. And so I'm going to be as generic as I can because I don't want to cause anybody to froth at the mouth and have to start blessing hearts and all that kind of stuff to get out of here in one piece. I do know this. One of the surest ways to start arguments and fights is to start mentioning who your favorite driver is. So I don't do it. If you guys want to have that conversation, you can do it, I'll watch. But I'm not going there. But we do love NASCAR. Now, I ain't got an education on this. Big time. You know, I like to give talks. I like to speak to folks. And, you know, you need advertisement. You need good PR. And what better way than to have my name on a NASCAR race car? Right? Well, now I embarrass myself. Because I met this driver, went up to him and said, explained to him my situation. And he asked me what kind of budget I was on. And I said, well, back home we would say that I'm on a beer budget trying to live a champagne lifestyle. He handed me a Sharpie. And he said, near the back you can put your initials. About this big. I learned the hard way about that. But hey, you know, there's nothing better for many of us than watching really, really fast cars drive around and around in a circle for hours. There is nothing better than that right there. You know, it saves anybody having to look at a map. You know? It saves having to follow along with it. You know that they're going to come back around. You can take a picnic basket to this thing. You can take your whole family to this thing. You can take your church groups to this thing. Because there's all kinds of wonderful parallels to life that you can get from NASCAR. Absolutely. You know, we were talking about slang. Well, NASCAR, like any other sport, has its own jargon. And there's a lot of it. Some of you may know a whole lot more than I do. I only know just a little bit. But just to share some of my favorites. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Now, we were using that word a long time ago, before it was made into a jargon term. But I don't think that one needs any explanation. You're going really fast. But see the difference in using this slang term instead of saying going really fast? Boogity, boogity, boogity. It has more expression, it has more personality. You get your point across instead of saying, I was driving my car. See, the job that I would end up having is a position called the catch can man. Anybody know who the catch can man is? Who's the catch can man? Somebody tell me.
Catches the gas, runs out the tank.
Catches the gas that runs out of the tank when they're in the pit filling up. That'd be my job. That'd be my job. There's no way I can get down and do tires like that. Okay? Tractor tires I can do, all right? I can do tractor tires, but those kind of tires, I don't do that. But catching gas that's dripping out, that's my job. Absolutely. Blow the motor? I like puke the motor better. Everybody know what that is? We got really quiet. I'm throwing out terms that not everybody knows. You're learning something. I did forget to mention at the beginning, since I'm a teacher, there will be a quiz at the very end. And we'll see who's been listening And who's been napping after dinner? Okay? I know when nap time is. Okay. We blow the motor. You lost a motor. You lost your motor. Where you lost it, no one knows. Or you puked it. You puked your motor. Hand grenaded your motor. All of these wonderful, wonderful things. What? I thought someone was contributing. What?
Shut out the engine.
Shelled out the engine. There we go. See, some of you know this better than I do. Or the equivalent of going to the principal's office is the big red trailer. You don't want to go to the big red trailer. There's way too many of these to learn. But know some things about this. It gets a lot, there's a lot of humor involved with NASCAR. A lot of stand-ups use it in their routines. Jeff Foxworthy is one of them. Many of them do. But it's number 2 behind the NFL right now as far as sport is concerned. So it's very popular. And again, where I come from, it's just a part of our character. It's just a part of who we are. And my encouragement to you as we wrap up our thoughts for the day, as we've already mentioned, is to think about who you guys are, who you gals are, what makes you who you are, where you've come from, what you stand for, the things that you do, the things that you say, and what will be passed down. Been a lot of things that have passed down to me, and Lord willing, there'll be things that have passed on to generations beyond me. Because all of these events, all of the things that we say, our actions, our driving, churched, unchurched, however you want to term it, the food that we eat, encompasses who we are. It's a reflection to everybody around us as to who and what we are. So I leave you with that thought and appreciate the opportunity, of course, to be here and to speak to you. And hope we've shared some things that cause you to remember, maybe reminisce, or to reflect. And as always, 3-second pause. 1, 2, 3. Bless your heart. Thank you.